Welcome back to Game Over Movie Reviews. My name's Peter, and today I'm going to be ranking the 9 films from one of my favourite working directors, Denis Villeneuve.
Denis Villeneuve.
That's what I said. Denis Villeneuve is a French-Canadian director, writer and producer from Quebec, known for his visual flair, a focus on interesting stories and strong female characters. Villeneuve has made a number of experimental short films, one of which, the beautifully grotesque Next Floor, is probably a film which most Villeneuve fans haven't seen and probably should. Next Floor must have been the inspiration for Netflix's Spanish sci-fi horror The Platform, as it's based around the same unpleasant premise and a similar theme of the obscene greed of the wealthy. It's available to watch on YouTube, and I'll leave a link in the description below. I definitely recommend watching it, and it's only 12 minutes long. Just one tip, don't eat whilst watching it. Villeneuve has released 9 full-length feature films up to this point, covering a range of genres and storytelling styles. I don't think any other director at the moment can quite match, possibly David Fincher, who seems to be cut from the same cloth as Villeneuve. A new adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune will be Villeneuve's 10th film, which we will hopefully get to see in October this year, and I'm very excited to see how that one turns out. I'll probably be going into very mild spoiler territory for Villeneuve's better known English language films, so if you've not seen any of these, please skip ahead. So with the introduction out of the way, let's begin the ranking with number 9, Maelstrom. Originally released in 2000, this was Villeneuve's second film and the last time he took on full writing duties on one of his films. A wealthy part-time model questions her seemingly perfect life after she experiences 2 traumatic events. Villeneuve himself has said he's very disappointed with his first 2 films, August the 32nd on Earth, which I'll get round to very shortly, and this film, Maelstrom. He took a 9-year sabbatical as a stay-at-home dad and said he'd return to the industry when he could make a film that he would be proud of. Presumably because of this, Maelstrom is almost impossible to get hold of. You can't rent it or buy it from any streaming services. You can't buy it on DVD or Blu-ray anywhere. I found someone selling a US version of the DVD on eBay, but they wanted £87 for it. So I found other methods to watch the film. And I can kind of see why Villeneuve is disappointed with this film. The story of Maelstrom is narrated by an animatronic fish, or series of fishes, on a fishmonger's chopping block. It's quite silly and whimsical, which is perfectly fine, but the film itself is quite serious and dark, and these tones clash constantly as we go back and forward. There are also some very odd musical choices. Some of the music in the film is very light and frivolous, which is again totally at odds with the tone of the film. This tonal weirdness would have worked if the story of the film, the meat and bones of Maelstrom, had been a bit more interesting and memorable, but it's actually pretty simple and a little like a daytime soap opera. The cinematography, one of the strongest aspects of nearly all Villeneuve's films, is very flat here. There are lots of close-up handheld shots, which I think were meant to add to this jarring tone of the film, but it ends up making it look quite cheap and like a TV movie. So I'm with Denis on this one. Maelstrom was quite disappointing, and I think it's the only film in this list I didn't particularly like. Number 8, August 32nd on Earth. Released in 1998, this was Denis Villeneuve's debut feature film. He also wrote it, and it's striking how similar the plot is to Maelstrom's. A young model reconsiders her life after a car crash. In questioning her mortality, she decides to have a baby, asking her best friend to be the father. He reluctantly agrees, but oddly stipulates that the conception must occur in a desert. This is a kooky, quirky little film. Again, it has quite an odd tone, which I think reflects Villeneuve's nature. It's almost totally serious, but has just that touch of playfulness to it. Visually, this feels more in keeping with Villeneuve's later aesthetic, which I felt was missing from Maelstrom. Big expanses shot with long, slow pans and pulls, and just a bit more visual creativity in general. Overall though, this film is just a little bit too slight. It's a short film at only 88 minutes long, but I feel it might have worked better as an actual short film. There's not quite enough plot and story here to fill a full film. God, that's quite hard to say. It seems to me that Maelstrom was an effort to almost remake this plot in a more inventive way, but I feel that experiment failed, and August 32nd on Earth is much stronger than its successor, but still far from the director's best work. It's just about worth checking out, and it's available now on Mubi. Number 7, Polytechnique. Released in 2009, this was Villeneuve's third film and his first after his self-imposed exile from the industry. Polytechnique is a dramatisation of the 1989 Montreal massacre, during which several female engineering students were murdered by an unstable misogynist. This film stands out in Villeneuve's filmography as being a bit of an outlier. It's not like any of his other films. And it's an unusual and very brave choice considering his first two films were disappointments to him. Polytechnique is a docudrama and it's incredibly tense. When I saw it for the first time recently, it actually knotted up my stomach and made me feel a little nauseous. Such was the tension. Polytechnique is based on a true story, though Villeneuve changed the names and details of the shooters' victims. But knowing that this actually happened creates a real bond of empathy between the viewer and these women. You hope that they'll make it out, but you also know for sure that most won't, and didn't. As the father of a girl about to start secondary school, this probably added to my own feelings of anxiety, because there are people like this out there. Some of Villeneuve's more showy visual tricks are on display here, including a nausea-inducing inverted tracking shot of a corridor. Otherwise, Villeneuve understands that simple is the key here. He tells this story without imposing himself too much on the film. If you haven't seen Polytechnique, I do recommend it. It's not quite as bleak as it sounds. There is some optimism, but at times it is a very tough film to watch. Number 6, Enemy.
Good afternoon.
Hey,
No, I'm calling to speak
where
to
are you calling from?
I'm sorry. I think there's been a
Who is
misunderstanding.
this?
Okay, I'll call back later.
Enemy was released in 2013 and was Villeneuve's 6th film, released in the same year as his 5th film, Prisoners, and this was his first foray into sci-fi territory. A mild-mannered college professor seeks out his exact lookalike after spotting him in a movie. So I think we need to start by talking about that ending, don't we? It's got to go down as one of the biggest what the fuck moments in recent cinematic history. When I first watched Enemy, I knew that I wasn't going to get a neat ending which explained everything, and I'd already made my peace with that. Then that final scene happened and I was left. In watching Enemy a second time, I'm still not quite convinced I know what's going on, and I'm not going to try and break it down. Chris Stuckmann has an excellent explanation of what he thinks the film is about, and I completely agree with his summary. I'll link the video in the description below, and will say it's definitely worth a watch if this film confuses you. Enemy is a great looking film. Nicolas Bolduc's cinematography has a real epic cinematic feel to it. I use those words very specifically because Enemy often has a very small feel to it, almost like an extended episode of The Twilight Zone. But Villeneuve's direction and Bolduc's cinematography give Enemy a real cinematic, epic feel. I also love Enemy's use of colour, or more specifically the lack of it. This is a very brown, sandy film, and along with the more surreal aspects of Enemy, it feels as if we're in another world, or perhaps a dream. This was also Villeneuve's first venture into the use of extended special effects, and though there aren't many in this film, they again have this feeling of grandness and otherworldliness, that final shot being a perfect example. Jake Gyllenhaal is so perfectly cast here and he excels in both the roles. Gyllenhaal does that frantic, pressured, stress-inducing role better than most actors these days. And Enemy does kind of end up being the Jake Gyllenhaal show, which I'm fine with. That is the end of my section on the film Enemy. Nothing else shocking to see here. Number 5, Encendies.
Mama. Mama.
Film number 4 from Villeneuve, released in 2010, and this one bagged Denis his first Oscar nomination for Best Foreign Language Film. A mother's last wishes send twins Jean and Simon on a journey to the Middle East in search of their tangled roots. Adapted from Wajdi Mouad's acclaimed play, Encendies tells the powerful and moving tale of two young adults' voyage to the core of deep-rooted hatred, never-ending wars, and enduring love. As with Enemy, Encendies has a reveal that will blow your socks off. This is my face when I first saw it. Hey, I already downloaded the video, I might as well use it twice. Denis Villeneuve is known for using strong female protagonists, and he doubles the ante here with having two great female leads. Lubna Azabel plays Nawel Marwan, whose story is mostly told in flashback, whilst her daughter Jean Marwan, played by Melissa Desmareaux-Poulin, is investigating her mother's story. We cleverly see flashbacks which bring us ever closer to the film's devastating reveal as Jean Marwan gets closer to uncovering the truth. And in this way, Incendies feels like a ticking time bomb. We know that these two stories are going to converge and collide and that something shocking is going to happen, but I don't think anyone watching this film could ever predict what that reveal is going to be. I will say though that the story which leads up to this moment is based on two absolutely astronomical coincidences. But it's one of those extremely bold story moments where it's so shocking that you don't really think about the logic in the lead up. If you do stop to think about it, it does strain credibility just a little bit. But I don't want to take away too much from the effect of what this film's ending does or from the film's general quality. Incendies is brutal and shocking and violent, but there's actually quite a lot of love in it as well, even if it is a bit fucked up. Number 4, Sicario.
You want to be a part of this?
Do we get an opportunity of the men responsible for today?
The men who are really responsible for today.
Film number 7 from Villeneuve was released in 2015 and boasts possibly his strongest cast, which includes Emily Blunt, Josh Brolin, Benicio del Toro, John Bernthal, and the UK's very own Oscar-winning Daniel Kaluuya. An idealistic FBI agent is enlisted by a government task force to aid in the escalating war against drugs at the border area between the US and Mexico. Sicario is a dark, dense, hard-hitting thriller which goes to great lengths to portray a realistic depiction of the ever-shifting war on this border. Looking back, this film will probably be bracketed with Polytechnique, Incendies and Prisoners as Villeneuve's dark period. Sicario will make you feel grimy and hopeless and leave you craving a family Disney classic to wash the dirt away. An absolutely brilliant Emily Blunt acts as the viewer's moral compass as she fights the cynical lawlessness of Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro. We as viewers are with her as she continues to push back by saying, "You shouldn't be doing this." Her shock and frustration becomes ours as she battles all sides and is never allowed a single step towards what she would consider a moral victory. This is a film which rewards you on multiple viewings. It's certainly gone up in my estimation every time I've watched it, and it might even creep up into the top 3 of this ranking one day. As draining as Sicario is to get through, it's a stunningly beautiful film thanks to the cinematography from the master Roger Deakins. This is amongst his best work and one of 3 collaborations with Villeneuve. The two just seem to work perfectly together. I mean, that night raid scene is just insanely good. I'll never tire of watching sequences like that. So Villeneuve fans out there should know which 3 films are left. See if you can guess which order I put them in and leave a comment below if you get it right. Also, what are your top 3 Denis Villeneuve films and are you looking forward to Dune as much as I am? If you're enjoying this ranking video, please hit that subscribe button. And if you like this video, please like this video. Number 3, Blade Runner 2049. I bet a few of you guessed wrong here, didn't you?
I love the first movie so much. It's a movie that was part of my cinematic education. I was like raised with Blade Runner. It's a movie that was by far one of my favorite movies of all time. So I said, I don't want someone else to fuck this up.
This was Villeneuve's 9th film, released in 2017, which apparently was 4 years ago. Young Blade Runner K's discovery of a long-buried secret leads him to track down former Blade Runner Rick Deckard, who's been missing for 30 years. As with most people, I suspect, I have a bit of a checkered history with the development of this film. Blade Runner is one of my personal favourite films of all time, and when I heard they were doing a sequel to it, I kind of thought, no. Ridley Scott had already tried, and in my opinion, just about failed in his continuation of the Alien story with Prometheus, and I just didn't want that to happen again. Then I heard that Denis Villeneuve was lined up to direct, and that Ryan Gosling had the lead, and my worries turned to cautious optimism. I will say when I first saw Blade Runner 2049, I was just a little bit disappointed. I found it overly long, occasionally laborious, and it just stretched the story a little bit too thin over the running time. I've seen it again a couple of times without the weight of expectations, and whilst I do still have quite a few issues with the film in general, I can happily say that this is a damn good sci-fi film, though I'm still in the camp who prefers the original. So I'll start with the things I love. Blade Runner 2049 is possibly the most beautiful sci-fi film ever made. Villeneuve was once again joined by Roger Deakins as director of photography, and I think that this is his best ever work. It's just incredible to look at, especially if you get a chance to see it on the big screen or in 4K. For a man who was responsible for the cinematography for No Country for Old Men, Sicario, and the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, I feel it's pretty criminal that this was Deakins' first Oscar win, but obviously completely deserved regardless. Ryan Gosling is perfect casting as Kay. Gosling's shtick is minimalist stoicism. He's the best in the biz at this kind of role. As with his character in Drive, he's able to do so much with so little. He barely speaks, barely emotes, and yet we're with him all the way through this story. I feared that Harrison Ford would be on autopilot for the return in this film, because it's no great secret he wasn't a great fan of that original. But surprisingly, he's fully energised and probably puts more effort into this role than he did with the original. Hans Zimmer and Benjamin Wallfish's score is absolutely sublime. It's a lot less bombastic and thematic than Zimmer's other work, but it really adds this kind of ethereal, sombre tone. I still have issues with Blade Runner 2049 though, and my main gripe is the character Nyanda Wallace and the performance from Jared Leto. I really don't like anything about Wallace, about his story, about what he's trying to do, and I'm near repulsed by Leto's performance. It's just way too much. This performance just feels so try-hard and method, and it just sticks out like a sore thumb and feels like a caricature at times. I do also still feel that this film is occasionally just too laborious in telling its story. It's the kind of film which will show a character walking down a corridor rather than showing a starting cut and a destination cut. But man, that cinematography at least makes that corridor look amazing. Number 2, can you guess? It's Prisoners.
Joy?
Wait, I checked the entire house. They're not here.
Dad, there was this RV and they were playing on it. We thought there was someone inside.
Villeneuve's 5th film was released in 2013, shortly before Enemy, though it was shot afterwards. And this was Denis' first big event film with a major Hollywood cast. When Keller Dover's daughter and her friend go missing, he takes matters into his own hands as the police pursue multiple leads and the pressure mounts. Kind of a name is Keller Dover anyway. Prisoners is another dark, grimy, heavy film from Villeneuve, based around every parent's worst nightmare, the kidnapping of their child. It's one of those films that gets under your skin and sticks with you long after the credits have finished rolling. Prisoner holds a mirror up to its viewers and asks, what would you do in the same situation? How far would you go? Would you cross those moral borders and become someone you don't recognise? Hugh Jackman is insanely good in this film. I just don't understand why he didn't get more awards buzz. One scene in particular in a bathroom shows you the depths where Jackman can actually go and makes you question why doesn't he take on more meaty roles like this?
And I was like exhausted, and I was sure Denis was coming over to me to say, man, that was the one. We got it. Thank you, buddy. And he came over and he goes, I really need you to go there, man. I was like, that wasn't there? And he goes, oh no, that's not there. So the next take is the one that's in the movie.
Jake Gyllenhaal and Denis Villeneuve enjoyed working together so much on Enemy that Villeneuve offered Gyllenhaal the role of unconventional FBI agent Loki. And Gyllenhaal throws everything at this role, perhaps maybe a bit too much at times. The actor himself came up with the idea of Loki's tattoos, his Freemason ring and facial tics, and you just know that he's written pages and pages of backstory for the character. The rest of the cast are absolutely outstanding as well. Terrence Howard, Viola Davis, Maria Bello, Melissa Leo, and Paul Dano all put in a shift here. Paul Dano gets especially put through the ringer in the type of role that he oddly seems to be drawn towards. Weirdo. And once again, Roger Deakins' cinematography gets another Oscar nomination. This is the least showy of Deakins' work with Villeneuve, but certainly no less impressive for it. Prisoners is right up there with Seven as that kind of dark, grimy thriller which latches onto your soul like a parasite. Actually, Parasite does that as well. And finally, number 1, you all guessed it, didn't you? It's Arrival.
There are days that define your story beyond your life. Like the day they arrived.
Released in 2016, this was Denis Villeneuve's 8th film, and not only is this my favourite film of his, it's one of my favourite films of all time. A linguist works with the military to communicate with alien life forms after 12 mysterious spacecraft appear around the world. Arrival is a beautiful, grounded sci-fi with an absolutely incredible story, adapted for the screen by Eric Heiserer from Story of Your Life, a short story by Ted Chiang. I read the story after I'd watched the film, and it's really impressive that Heiserer was able to make such an emotionally rewarding film from what is such a dense short story. The heart of Arrival, though, is the magnificent performance from Amy Adams, who really carries the weight of the entire film on her shoulders. Reason number 236 that the Oscars are a joke: Amy Adams did not get nominated for Best Actress. I can't think of another film which makes me feel the same way that Arrival does, and most of that is down to Adams. The best way I can describe that feeling is the oxymoron, sorrowful joy. I'm going to talk spoilers here, so if you've not seen Arrival, firstly, have a word with yourself. Secondly, stop this video. Thirdly, go and watch Arrival. In revealing that Adams' character, Louise Banks' memories of her deceased daughter are not memories at all, but glimpses into a future which has yet to happen, Arrival smashes you with a tsunami of emotions. You already feel great sympathy for the character for her apparent loss. Then you're forced to reevaluate the situation, asking yourself, would you have a child to share a small number of happy years together, knowing that child would die before they got to adulthood? Again, as a parent, the weight of this question feels immense. I watched this with my daughter last year and we actually reviewed it on the channel, and it was an amazing experience for me, and she loved it as well. Arrival is the kind of film that makes you want to cuddle your children. Beyond Amy Adams and the story, Arrival is a stunning film to look at. Bradford Young's cinematography feels epic where it needs to be, especially in that first reveal of the ship. Wow, what a scene. But there's also an intimate personal feel to the flashback scenes of Louise playing with her daughter. Finally, Johan Johansson's score is one of my absolute favourite film scores. And reason number 237 that the Oscars are a joke, Max Richter's On the Nature of Daylight, which bookends the film, meant that Johan Johansson's score was deemed ineligible for an Academy Award because it uses a pre-existing track. But at least Arrival was nominated for 8 Oscars, so I'll cut them a little bit of slack. So that's it, that's my ranking of all 9 Denis Villeneuve movies. I can't wait for number 10 in June later on this year, and I wonder where that will come in my ranking. Will it crack that top 3? Thanks for watching.
Game over, man. It's game over.